The morning sunlight slipped through the kitchen blinds, casting thin golden lines across the counter. Ethan Cole stood in his small apartment, leaning against the counter, a cup of black coffee warming his callous hands. He wore a faded gray tank top, broad shoulders relaxed, his face calm like every other morning before work. Then the bedroom door creaked open. Victoria Lane stepped out, her dark hair tangled, her body wrapped in an oversized white dress shirt that clearly did not belong to her. She froze in the hallway. Her eyes went wide. Her lips parted in silent shock as she stared at him standing in the kitchen. No memory, no explanation. Ethan turned his head slowly, his gaze steady, unhurried. "Good morning," he said quietly. Steam rose from his coffee between them, and the fear began to form behind her eyes. What happened last night? 12 hours earlier, the corporate dinner had been in full swing at a downtown Chicago restaurant. Crystal chandeliers hung above long tables filled with executives, analysts, and middle managers, all wearing their best networking smiles. Ethan Cole sat near the end of one table, checking his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. His daughter Ella had her school talent show tonight. She had made him promise to sit in the front row. He had given her his word. He planned to show his face for an hour, shake a few hands, then slip out before anyone noticed. That was the plan. But plans change. He first noticed Victoria Lane near the bar. She was the CEO of the fintech division, a woman known for her composure under pressure, her tailored suits, her ability to command any room she entered. Tonight, she looked different. Her movements were loose and uncoordinated. Her glass was never empty. The people around her kept their distance, pretending not to see what was happening right in front of them. Ethan watched her stumble slightly, catching herself on the edge of the bar. Nobody moved to help. Nobody said a word. He checked his watch again. 45 minutes, until the show started. Victoria dropped her clutch. The contents scattered across the polished floor. She bent down too quickly, lost her balance, and nearly fell. Her phone had gone dark, the battery dead. She was mumbling something about an address, patting her pockets like she was searching for something she could not find. Ethan looked around the room. Executives were laughing at their own jokes. Junior staff members were too intimidated to approach. The bartender wiped glasses and minded his own business. He could leave. He should leave. The optics of a male subordinate helping a female CEO who was clearly intoxicated could destroy his career in one misinterpreted moment. He knew this. He understood the risk better than most, but he also knew what could happen to a woman alone in this condition. A wrong taxi, a wrong street, a wrong decision made by someone else. Ethan pulled out his phone and called Angela, the woman who watched Ella when he worked late. "I need a favor. Can you take Ella to her show tonight? I will explain later." There was a pause. Then Angela's voice, gentle but honest. "She is going to be so disappointed, Ethan." He closed his eyes. "I know." He hung up and walked toward Victoria. He kept his distance, spoke in a low voice. "Miss Lane, is there someone I can call for you? A friend? A family member?" She looked up at him with glassy eyes. "I just moved. I cannot remember the address. My phone is dead." She laughed bitterly. "Some CEO, right?" Ethan tried the restaurant staff. No one wanted the liability. He tried finding a colleague who might help. Everyone had conveniently stepped away. He made a decision. "I am going to take you somewhere safe," he said. "My apartment. You can sleep it off. I will stay in my daughter's room." Victoria did not argue. She did not have the capacity to argue. On the drive to his place, she got sick twice. He pulled over each time, handed her water, waited. At one point, she whispered, "I do not want anyone to see me like this." He did not respond. He just kept driving. When they arrived at his building, the windows of his apartment were dark. Ella was already gone. Angela had taken her to the show. The show, where his seat in the front row would be empty. Ethan helped Victoria inside, guided her to the couch, and stepped back. He did not linger. He did not touch her more than necessary. He filled a glass with water, set 2 aspirin on the coffee table, and found a clean set of clothes since her dress was stained and wrinkled beyond saving. Then he wrote a note. He placed it where she would see it first thing in the morning. The words were simple and clear. You are at my home because you could not get back to yours safely. I slept in my daughter's room. There is water and aspirin on the table. My name is Ethan Cole. I work in operations. He plugged in her dead phone, setting it on the table beside the note. A small act of consideration. He did not know it would become evidence of something else entirely. Around midnight, Angela's car pulled into the parking lot. Ella was half asleep when she came through the door, her costume still on, glitter in her hair. She stopped when she saw the figure on the couch. "Daddy, who was that?" Ethan knelt down to her level. "Someone from work who got sick. She needed a safe place to rest." Ella studied the sleeping woman, then looked back at her father. The question came without accusation, just the honest confusion of a child. "You missed my song, Daddy." Ethan's throat tightened. "I know, sweetheart. I am so sorry. You promised you would be in the front row." "I know I did." Ella did not cry. She just nodded the way children do when they are learning that adults do not always keep their promises. Angela helped her to bed, and Ethan followed, spreading a blanket on the floor of his daughter's room. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, running through everything he had done. The note, the distance, the witness in the form of his own child. Everything was documented. Everything was appropriate. But he could not sleep because he understood something most people never learned until it was too late. It did not matter what he had done. It mattered what she believed when she woke up. His phone buzzed softly. A video message from Angela. The file was titled Ella's Performance. Ethan held the phone in his hands, but could not bring himself to press play. Not yet. Not while the woman in his living room held the power to unravel everything he had built. The sounds came just after 6:00 the morning. Footsteps, a sharp intake of breath, movement in the living room. Ethan had planned to wait. He wanted Victoria to find the note first, to read it before seeing him, to understand the situation before panic set in. That was the logical approach, but logic does not account for trauma responses. Victoria woke in a strange room wearing clothes that were not hers. Her memory was a black hole. Her first instinct was not to look for an explanation. It was to look for a threat. She grabbed her phone from the table. The battery showed full. Someone had charged it. In her mind, that was not kindness. That was evidence of something else. Something she could not name but felt in her bones. Her hands shook as she dialed Rachel's number. Rachel Chen was a corporate attorney and Victoria's closest friend. They had known each other since law school. Rachel had seen Victoria through her divorce, through the hostile takeover attempt last year, through every crisis that required someone who could think 3 steps ahead. Rachel's voice was thick with sleep. "It is 6:00 the morning. I woke up at some man's apartment." Victoria's voice cracked. "I do not remember anything. I am wearing his clothes, Rachel." "His clothes?" Rachel was already out of bed. "Where are you? Do you know his name?" "I do not know where I am. There is a note. It says, his name is Ethan Cole. He works at my company." "A subordinate." Rachel's voice shifted into the tone she used in depositions. Calm, controlled, lethal. "Listen to me. Do not say anything to him. Do not apologize. Do not explain. I want you to call HR the moment they open. Tell them exactly what you told me. We need to get ahead of this." "Ahead of what?" "I do not even know what happened." "That is exactly the point. You do not know. And until we do know, we protect you first. Document everything. Take photos of the room. Note the time. If this goes sideways, I want a paper trail that shows you reported it immediately." Victoria heard the sound of footsteps coming down the hall. "He is coming. Do not hang up." But Victoria did hang up because a little girl had just appeared in the hallway. 8 years old, brown hair, still messy from sleep, wearing pajamas with cartoon elephants on them. The child looked at Victoria with curious, unguarded eyes. "Are you feeling better?" the girl asked. "Daddy said you were sick." Victoria stood frozen. "Daddy." Ethan appeared behind his daughter, wearing the same tank top from before. His expression unreadable. He did not look angry. He did not look guilty. He just looked tired. "Ella, go brush your teeth, please." The girl obeyed without argument, disappearing back down the hall. Victoria watched her go, then let her eyes travel across the room. Children's artwork covered one wall. Family photos sat on a bookshelf. A small backpack with a unicorn patch leaned against the door, and there on the floor beside the couch where she had slept was a folded blanket and a pillow. He had slept in his daughter's room, just like the note said. Victoria picked up the paper from the coffee table and read it again. The handwriting was neat, the message clear. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. He had anticipated her fear and addressed it before she even woke up. "Miss Lane," Ethan said quietly, "I know this looks bad. I know you are scared, but I need you to understand that nothing happened last night. You were in no condition to get home safely. I made a judgment call. That is all." Victoria stared at him. Her mind was pulling in two directions. The note, the child, the blanket on the floor. Everything pointed to exactly what he was saying, but Rachel's voice echoed in her head. "You do not know. Protect yourself first." "I need to leave," Victoria said. "I will call you a cab." She waited outside his building until the taxi arrived. Before she got in, she looked back at the window where the little girl's face appeared, watching her go. Something cold settled in Victoria's stomach. Not because of what might have happened, but because of what she was about to do next. Victoria Lane sat in her corner office 3 hours later, staring at her computer screen. The cursor blinked in an empty email field. The recipient line read, "Legal and Human Resources." Rachel had called twice more since Victoria left Ethan's apartment. Each call reinforced the same message. Document everything. Report it immediately. Control the narrative before someone else does. "You do not know what happened," Rachel had said. "And if this man decides to get ahead of you to tell people his own version, you will be playing defense. CEOs do not play defense, Tori. You know that." Victoria knew it. She had built her career on that principle. Strike first. Control the frame. Never let anyone else define your story. But something kept her fingers frozen above the keyboard. She had called Rachel back after leaving the apartment and tried to explain the note, the child, the blanket on the floor. The way Ethan had spoken to her without anger or defense, just quiet honesty. Rachel had listened, then said the words that sealed everything. "You cannot be certain because you do not remember. And if even 1% of your gut is telling you something is wrong, you owe it to yourself to protect that 1%. That is not accusation. That is precaution." Precaution. The word felt clinical, safe. It was not an accusation. It was just a report, just a record, just in case. Victoria began typing. She chose her words carefully. She did not claim assault. She did not use language that could not be walked back. She simply stated facts. She had attended a company event. She had consumed alcohol. She had woken up at the residence of an employee with no memory of the previous night. She was filing this report to ensure proper documentation and to request a review of company protocols regarding employee conduct at corporate functions. The language was HR approved, neutral, professional, but she knew what it would trigger. She knew the machine it would set in motion. Her finger hovered over the send button. For one moment, she thought about Ethan standing in his kitchen, calm and unhurried, offering her coffee like this was any other morning. She thought about the little girl asking if she felt better. She thought about the handwritten note waiting for her on the coffee table, anticipating her fear before she even opened her eyes. Then she thought about the board meeting next week, the investors watching her every move, the whispers that would follow if anyone found out she had been drunk at a company event and ended up at a subordinate home. Victoria pressed send. By the time Ethan Cole dropped Ella off at school that morning, the email had already reached 3 department heads. By the time he walked into his office building, security was waiting to escort him to human resources. He did not know that his badge had been flagged. He did not know that his access to the company server had been suspended. He did not know that the woman he had tried to help had just filed a report that used the words inappropriate conduct and potential policy violation in the same paragraph. He found out when Mason Reed from HR handed him a printed document and asked him to read it carefully. "You are being placed on administrative leave pending investigation," Mason said. "This is standard procedure. It is not a determination of guilt." Ethan read the document twice. His face did not change. His hands did not shake, but something inside him went very still. "I need to make arrangements for my daughter," he said. "You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Security will escort you out." Ethan nodded once, then asked the question he already knew the answer to. "Am I allowed to know who filed this report?" Mason hesitated. Given the nature of the allegation, the complainant's identity is protected under company policy. But Ethan did not need a name. There was only one person it could be. He walked back to his desk under the watchful eyes of a security guard. His coworkers glanced at him, then quickly looked away. The rumor mill had already started grinding. By lunch, everyone would have their own theory about what Ethan Cole had done to get escorted out of the building. He packed his things into a cardboard box, a photo of Ella at her FH birthday, a coffee mug she had painted for him at summer camp, a small cactus that had somehow survived 3 years on his desk. His phone buzzed. A message from the school. "Ella has been asking about the talent show. Can you send the video?" Ethan stared at the message. He had not watched the video yet. He had been waiting for the right moment. A quiet evening when he could give it his full attention, when he could feel proud instead of guilty. Now, he did not know when that moment would come. He walked out of the building at 11:47 inches the morning, the cardboard box in his arms, his badge surrendered at the front desk. The security guard held the door open for him without making eye contact. In the parking lot, Ethan sat in his car for a long time. He did not start the engine. He did not call anyone. He just sat there thinking about the coffee he had offered Victoria that morning, the note he had written to calm her fears, the blanket he had folded on his daughter's floor. He had done everything right. He had documented. He had maintained distance. He had protected her dignity while protecting his own integrity. And none of it mattered because the system did not care about truth. The system cared about risk. And right now, Ethan Cole was the biggest risk on the company's books. He finally started his car and drove toward the school. Ella would be getting out in a few hours. She would ask about his day. She would want to know why he was home early. He would have to find the words to explain something he did not understand himself. The next 3 weeks redefined everything Ethan Cole thought he knew about fairness. The HR investigation moved slowly, deliberately, with the kind of caution that protected the company rather than the people involved. Ethan was barred from the office, barred from contacting Victoria or any potential witnesses, barred from defending himself in any public forum. His world shrank to the walls of his small apartment. The financial impact hit first. His overtime hours vanished. His quarterly bonus was frozen pending the outcome. For a single father living paycheck to paycheck, these were not inconveniences. They were emergencies. The rent was due in 2 weeks. Ella's after-school program cost money he no longer had. The safety net he had carefully built over 8 years of single parenting was unraveling thread by thread. The social impact came next. Word traveled through the company like a virus. Nobody knew the details, but everyone had theories. Ethan Cole got walked out by security. Something happened with a female executive. I heard it was inappropriate. You know how these things go. Colleagues who had laughed with him at lunch now avoided his eyes in the grocery store. Friends from work stopped calling. The silence was louder than any accusation. Then it reached Ella. She came home from school one afternoon, with her jaw set in that way children have when they are trying not to cry. Ethan knelt down to meet her eyes. "What happened, sweetheart?" "Marcus said you did something bad at work. He said that is why you do not go there anymore." Ethan felt the words like a physical blow. "What did you tell him?" "I told him he was lying, but he said his mom told him. And moms do not lie." Ethan pulled her into a hug, holding her tight while he searched for words that would make sense to an 8-year-old. Sometimes, people hear parts of a story and think they know the whole thing, but they do not. What matters is what is true, not what people think they know. "What is true, Daddy?" "The truth is that I helped someone who needed help. And sometimes when you help people, other people misunderstand. That is not fair. No, it is not. Ella was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that haunted Ethan every night. Are you going to go to jail? He held her tighter. No, baby. I am not going to jail. This is just a work problem. It will get sorted out. But he was not sure anymore. He was not sure of anything. The investigation continued with Ethan on the outside looking in. He learned through fragments and whispers that a security guard from the restaurant had given a statement. The man had seen Ethan leaving with Victoria. The description was vague, but damning. They left together. He had his arm around her. Context was everything, and context was exactly what the investigation lacked. Ethan began gathering his own evidence, GPS records from his phone showing the route he had taken that night, timestamps from the call to Angela, asking her to take Ella to the show, a receipt from the gas station where he had bought water when Victoria got sick, the text messages he had sent throughout the evening documenting his plans and his decisions. But every time he considered submitting this evidence, he hesitated. Would it look like he was trying to manufacture a defense? Would it suggest that he had known this accusation was coming and had prepared accordingly? The system was designed to interpret everything through a lens of suspicion. Even innocence looked guilty if you examined it the wrong way. Mason Reed called him in for a follow-up meeting 3 weeks after the initial suspension. Ethan sat in the same HR conference room across from the same neutral expression. Mr. Cole, I want you to understand that this process is designed to protect everyone involved. I understand. The complainant has indicated that she does not recall the events of that evening. Clearly, this has made our investigation more complex. She does not remember because nothing happened that would be memorable. I took her to my home because she could not get to hers. I slept on the floor of my daughter's room. My daughter was present. I left a note explaining everything. We are aware of these claims. They are not claims. They are facts. Mason folded his hands on the table. Mr. Cole, you need to understand that this situation is highly sensitive. The company has to consider every possibility. Every possibility. Ethan leaned forward. Do you know what this possibility is doing to my daughter? She asked me if I was going to jail. And 8-year-old asked her father if he was going to jail because of what she heard at school. Mason's expression did not change. We are working as quickly as we can work faster. Victoria Lane had not left her apartment in 3 days. She told herself it was work. She could run the company from anywhere. The board meetings were virtual. The reports came through email. There was no reason to go into the office when everything she needed was right here on her laptop. But the truth was simpler and harder to admit. She could not face the building where Ethan Cole used to work. She could not walk past his empty desk without seeing the cardboard box he had carried out. She could not attend a meeting without wondering which of her colleagues knew what she had done. The investigation reports arrived in her inbox daily. She read every word. She studied the timeline, the witness statements, the evidence that was slowly being assembled. And the more she read, the worse she felt. The security footage from the restaurant lobby showed Ethan approaching her carefully, keeping his distance, speaking to her at arm's length. When he helped her walk to his car, his hand was on her elbow, nothing more. He opened the door for her, waited until she was seated, then walked around to the driver's side without once looking around to see who might be watching. The footage from his apartment building was even clearer. He parked in a well-lit area. He helped her inside using the same careful, minimal contact. The timestamp showed that his apartment lights went off within 15 minutes of their arrival. No lights came back on until morning. The GPS records confirmed his story exactly. The phone records showed the call to Angela at the precise time he had claimed. The receipt from the gas station matched the timeline perfectly. Everything he had told her was true. Victoria stared at her reflection in the dark laptop screen. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had made a terrible mistake and was only now beginning to understand how terrible it was. Her phone buzzed. "Rachel, I saw the latest report," Rachel said. "The evidence is looking favorable for you. I mean, no proof of any wrongdoing on his part means no proof of any wrongdoing against you. This could actually work out well. Work out well. The company will probably settle quietly." Reinstate him with back pay. Sign some NDAs. Move on. You come out clean because you were just being cautious. That is how these things work. Tori. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. He has a daughter. I know. She was there that night. She saw me on the couch. She asked if I was feeling better. Tori, you cannot think about that. You did what you had to do to protect yourself. Did I? Rachel sighed. Look, I know this is hard, but you need to let the process work. Let HR handle it. Let manage the optics. Your job is to keep your head down and let this blow over. Victoria hung up without saying goodbye. She pulled up her email and started typing. Not to HR this time. Not to legal this time. She typed a meeting request. 3 people. Mason Reed, the company's chief legal officer, and herself. She was going to fix this. Not because it was good strategy. Not because Rachel told her to. But because she had seen the children's artwork on Ethan Cole's wall, and she could not unsee it. The conference room felt different, with Victoria Lane sitting at the table. She had requested this meeting herself, which was unusual. CEOs did not typically insert themselves into HR investigations, especially investigations they had initiated. Mason Reed and the chief legal officer, a woman named Patricia Wells, exchanged glances as Victoria took her seat. Thank you for meeting with me, Victoria said. I know this is irregular, to say the least, Patricia replied carefully. Our legal advice has been for you to maintain distance from this process. I understand, but I have information that changes things. She opened a folder and placed a document on the table. It was a formal statement signed at the bottom. I am withdrawing my initial report and replacing it with this. I have reviewed all available evidence and spoken with the investigators. Based on what I have seen, I do not believe any misconduct occurred. Mason picked up the document and read it slowly. Miss Lane, you understand that this is highly unusual. Once a report is filed, the company has an obligation to investigate regardless of the complainant's wishes. I know. I am not asking you to stop the investigation. I am asking you to include my corrected statement in the record and to lift Mr. Cole's suspension immediately pending final review. Patricia leaned forward. If we reinstate him now and something surfaces later, the liability exposure for the company would be significant. The liability exposure from keeping an innocent man suspended while his daughter is being bullied at school is also significant, just not the kind you can measure in dollars. The room went quiet. Victoria continued. I filed that report because I was afraid. I woke up in a situation I did not understand, and I did what I was trained to do. Protect myself first. Control the narrative. But I was wrong. The evidence is clear. Cole did nothing except help someone who needed help. And because of my fear, he has lost 3 weeks of his life. His reputation has been damaged, and his child is asking if her father is going to jail. She paused. I am prepared to accept whatever internal review the company deems appropriate for my handling of this situation. But I will not let my mistake destroy this man's life when I have the power to stop it. Mason and Patricia exchanged another look. We will need to discuss this with the full HR committee, Mason said. Discuss it quickly. Every day that passes does more damage. The meeting ended. Victoria did not return to her office. She went home and waited. 3 days later, Ethan Cole received an email. The suspension was lifted. He was cleared to return to work immediately with full back pay for the time he had missed. But clearing his name on paper was different from clearing his name in reality. The whispers did not stop when Ethan walked back into the building. If anything, they got louder. People who had avoided him before now openly stared. The story had evolved in his absence. Some versions had him guilty and getting away with it. Some had him blackmailing the CEO into dropping the charges. Some were even worse. Ella still came home with questions. The other parents at school still looked at him sideways during pickup. The damage had been done. Victoria understood this. She had not expected the reinstatement email to fix everything. That was why she requested a second meeting, this time with a different purpose. She proposed a company-wide training initiative, new protocols for handling misconduct allegations, mandatory evidence review before any suspension, clear guidelines for protecting both accusers and accused. The changes would not erase what had happened to Ethan Cole, but they might prevent it from happening to someone else. The board approved the initiative reluctantly. Some members thought it made the company look bad, like they were admitting the system was broken. Others understood that the system had always been broken and that acknowledging it was the first step toward fixing it. Ethan heard about the initiative through official channels. He did not know Victoria was behind it. He did not know she had fought for it in 3 separate board meetings. All he knew was that the company was changing its policies, and the timing seemed too convenient to be coincidental. He ran into her once in the elevator. They were alone. The doors closed, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "Thank you," he finally said, "for correcting the record." Victoria looked straight ahead. "I should not have filed it in the first place. You were scared. People do strange things when they are scared." She turned to look at him. "That is very generous, considering what I put you through." "I am not being generous. I am being accurate. Fear makes people react. What matters is what you do." After the fear passes, the elevator reached her floor. The doors opened. She stepped out, then paused. "Your daughter, is she okay?" "She is getting there. Kids are resilient." Victoria nodded once. "Good. That is good." She walked away without looking back. The parent meeting at Ella's school happened on a Thursday evening. Ethan had been dreading it for a week. The principal had called to explain that several parents had expressed concerns about the situation involving Mr. Cole, and a meeting had been arranged to address those concerns. Ethan arrived early. He sat in the front row of the small auditorium where his daughter had performed her talent show song. The same stage where he should have been watching instead of driving his drunk CEO home. The other parents filtered in slowly. Most avoided sitting near him. A few nodded politely. One mother whispered to her husband loud enough for Ethan to hear. "That is him, the one from the news." There had not been any news coverage. But in the age of social media, gossip traveled faster than journalism. The principal opened the meeting with generic remarks about community and communication. Then she turned it over to Ethan. He stood up, faced the room full of suspicious faces, and spoke calmly. "I know what you have heard. I know what you think you know. So, let me tell you what actually happened." He told them about the corporate dinner, about Victoria being unable to get home safely, about the decision he made to help her rather than walk away, about the note he left, the door he kept open, the daughter who saw everything he told them about the investigation, about the suspension, about being walked out of his building while his coworkers watched, about Ella asking if he was going to jail. And then he told them about the evidence, the security footage, the GPS records, the official statement from Victoria Lane herself confirming that nothing inappropriate had occurred. "I was cleared," he said, "completely and officially. But I understand that some of you still have doubts. That is your right. All I ask is that you do not punish my daughter for something her father did not do." The room was silent. Then the back door opened, and Victoria Lane walked in. She was dressed simply, no power suit, no designer heels. She walked to the front of the room and stood beside Ethan. "My name is Victoria Lane. I am the person, Mr. Cole helped that night. And I am the person who filed the report that started all of this." The whispers erupted. Victoria waited until they died down. "I filed that report because I was afraid. I woke up confused and made assumptions that were wrong. The investigation proved those assumptions were wrong. Mr. Cole did nothing but help a stranger who needed help, and because of my mistake, his family has suffered." She looked directly at the parents in the front row. "One email from someone with power can destroy a family. I almost destroyed this one, not because of any crime, not because of any misconduct, but because I was scared, and the system let me turn that fear into a weapon." She paused. "Mr. Cole's daughter deserves to go to school without being bullied. Mr. Cole deserves to pick her up without being stared at. I cannot undo what I did, but I can tell you the truth, and the truth is that this man is exactly what he appears to be, a good father who made a hard choice." She turned and walked out without waiting for questions. Ethan watched her go. The parents watched her go, And somewhere in the silence that followed, something shifted. It was not forgiveness. It was not absolution. But it was acknowledgement. And sometimes acknowledgement is the beginning of healing. 6 months later, things were different. Ethan still worked at the same company. Victoria still ran the same division. They saw each other occasionally in hallways and meetings. They nodded politely. They exchanged brief professional courtesies. There was no friendship between them, no warmth, but there was respect. The cold, hard-earned respect of two people who had seen each other at their worst and chosen to move forward anyway. The company's new policies were implemented and became a model for other organizations. The idea that accusations should be investigated carefully before careers were destroyed seemed obvious in retrospect, but it had taken Ethan Cole's near destruction to make anyone pay attention. Ella had another performance coming up, a spring concert at her school. She had been practicing for weeks, and she had extracted a promise from her father. "Front row," she said. "You promised." "I know. I will be there. You said that last time." Ethan knelt down to meet her eyes. "Last time I made a choice. It was the right choice, but it cost me something important. This time, I am making a different choice. You are the most important thing in my life, and I will be in the front row." The night of the concert, Ethan arrived early. He sat in the front row, directly in front of the stage, exactly where he had promised to be. When Ella walked out in her costume, she scanned the audience until she found him. Her face broke into a smile so wide it could have lit the room. She sang beautifully. She remembered every word. And when it was over, she ran off the stage and straight into her father's arms. "You came? I told you I would." "I know, but you really came." He held her tight and felt something settle in his chest. The wound had not healed completely. It probably never would, but the scar was forming, and scars were just stories your body told about the things you survived. Later that night, after Ella was asleep, Ethan finally watched the video from the performance he had missed. The one from 6 months ago, the one Angela had sent him while he lay on the floor of his daughter's room, wondering if his life was about to end. He watched Ella sing her song. He watched her look out at the audience, searching for his face, not finding it. He watched her smile anyway, brave and bright, finishing her performance without knowing where her father was or why he was not there. A tear rolled down his cheek, then another. He had done the right thing that night. He knew that helping someone in trouble was not a sin, even if the system treated it like one. But the cost had been real. The absence had been real. And no amount of vindication could give him back that moment. He closed the video and put his phone away. The next morning, he made breakfast. Ella came out in her pajamas, still glowing from the night before. They ate together in comfortable silence. Father and daughter, survivor and survivor. "Daddy," Ella said between bites of pancake, "I am glad you are not in jail." Ethan almost laughed. "Almost. Me too, sweetheart. Me too." The headline that never ran would have read like this: "Single dad took his drunk CEO home." His next morning reward was almost losing everything. But the real story was simpler. A man made a choice. The choice was right. The cost was high. Not because the system protected him, not because the powerful woman who nearly destroyed him found her conscience, but because he kept showing up for his daughter, for his job, for the life he had built piece by piece after everything else fell apart. That is what survival looks like. Not a single dramatic moment. Not a triumphant courtroom speech. Just a quiet decision made every day to keep going. Ethan Cole kept going. Ella Cole kept singing, and somewhere in a corner office, Victoria Lane kept a small reminder of the lesson she had learned the hard way. A single email sent in fear could destroy a life, but a single choice made with courage could save one. That was the real ending. Not happy.